All right, we are live. Jamie, Steven, thank you for joining me. This is a very special interview in collaboration with Asensei, and uh, this is going to be very interesting and very enlightening, I think, for a lot of people within our industry. And we're going to start off, Jamie, by allowing you to give a little bit of introduction to who you are and what ReadyFit is. And Steven, you can do the same for yourself as well. But we're going to dive into training the tactical athlete, and more importantly, kind of the problem that our country, and it sounds like, Jamie, as you're providing some insights globally as well, is the total available people we have for our military service and how that's dwindling and the reasons why and why that's such a big problem moving forward. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about today, and we'll start with Jamie. If you don't mind, just giving us a little bit of introduction to you and your background, how you got to be the head of ReadyFit, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm a Navy veteran, former Navy SEAL, but since my time in the SEALs, I've done a lot. I started with and still am in event production and endurance sports, and so running events, cycling events, triathlon, and ReadyFit is kind of an extension of that. You know, as you put on live events, you can reach a lot more people if you can do it digitally, and so. We can dive into the story, but, from a very young age, I was always interested in physical fitness tests and measuring up and how do I measure up. I've come to find out not everyone's always interested in how they measure up, but I have the personality. I always thought that everyone was like, how many pull-ups could I do compared to you and Steven, is like important to me, or has been my whole life. Like, or how do I stand up on the scoring chart, if you will, like even like they don't do it anymore, but it used to be the presidential fitness test that kids took in elementary school and middle school. And, so I was, that was sort of my background into always thinking about fitness, being a part of it. And then joining the Navy, like the main qualifier for becoming a SEAL is taking a fitness test and scoring high enough that you get accepted like a college application. So the first step is a 500-yard swim, max push-ups, max sit-ups, max pull-ups, and a mile-and-a-half run. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but you're competing against a bunch of people, and you want to have good scores, and then that sort of leads to the broader training. Now you're qualified, and then it gets even harder from there.
Yeah, awesome, Steven. Remind people who you are. You've been on the show a couple of times, but I could always use a refresher.
No, thanks for hosting us, and thanks for joining as well, Jamie. So, I'm Steven Webster, CEO of Asensei, and for those that don't know Asensei, what? But for those that don't know Asensei, we make human movement something a machine can understand. So, we're working in sport, fitness, industrial athletes, tactical athletes, to add three things to our customers' products: motion capture of the athlete in front of the camera, movement recognition of what they're doing, and then a layer of intelligent coaching insights on top, whether we're delivering those insights directly to the athlete in the moment or to a coach post-workout. We have this coaching intelligence layer that makes sense of all the data that we're capturing. So, I'm super excited to have Jamie here, Eric, because I think one of my favorite quotes, and I'm known for quoting quotes, but one of my favorite quotes hangs on the wall of a lot of Nike stores, right? Is Bill Bowerman's quote, "If you have a body, you're an athlete." Mm-hmm. So when we founded the company, I remember when I used to work for Adobe, somebody saying to me, never call the end user a user. There's only one industry in the world that calls its customers users. So don't talk about users. And so I always try really hard to have a more descriptive, evocative term of who our target customer is. And so we decided, given Bill Bowerman, let's call them an athlete. But now as we work with our customers, like ReadyFit, it's let's unpack that. Who is the athlete? Are they an everyday athlete? Are they an industrial athlete? And I'm just very excited. You mentioned at the top of the call that we get to talk about how does movement recognition, motion capture, and coaching intelligence serve the tactical athlete who wishes to serve the country. So thanks for hosting us today.
Yeah, awesome. And I mean, this is what you guys are working on here together is something that has always been of interest to me, is how do we scale high quality coaching, right? How do we make that available? I've had great coaches, amazing coaches in my life. Super fortunate. Some of them I sought out, some of them just came to my life through sport or through whatever, right? But a lot of people have never really experienced a good coach. They don't have access to it, whether it be, due to financially or due to geographically, whatever it may be. So to be able to scale that out and provide better coaching to more people is a really exciting venture. So I'm grateful to have you guys here today. And let's start with the problem, right? That you're going after here, Jamie specifically. And I have a stat here from an Athletech article that was done on you guys about a year ago. Currently, 23% of Americans aged 17 to 24 are qualified for military service, largely due to issues related to fitness and obesity. Now, I know you have an extension of that statistic and even more information and relevancy. So how did we get here? Like, how did this happen, Jamie? And how big is this problem exactly? And why is it so important?
Well, it's a national security problem, really. I mean, if you look at military recruiting in general, like most people recruiting or that are serving have a family member that also served. I think it's less than 1 in 10 Americans know someone who's in the military. And so the more that extends itself, the problem kind of just continues to spiral and get worse. And so, like, how did we get there? I think technology is a big part. I think as much as people don't want to admit it, I think COVID was a big part with our youth. We put them in front of their screens for 2 years and said you can't go outside and you can't play and you can't do these things without worry of getting sick. And then, like, I know in California, some of it's like access to sport. Like when you think about it, it's not a problem just between 18 and 23-year-olds. Like, you have to have people able to participate in sports at an early age. And the more that people are addicted to their screens and on YouTube and doing the things that kids do, being gamers. I've got some boys, and my boys are both big gamers, and kind of drives me crazy. But it's so it's just trying to shift that focus or try to recenter it. Where technology is good, but here's all these other things that are going to be lifelong benefits to you. And where we're at with ReadyFit is it's a great way to meet the youth where they're at. They're already on their phones and they're into technology. And so I think that's where we have a big advantage. What ReadyFit is it administers all of the military's physical readiness tests virtually so that you don't have to go and take a test in person. So if I wanted to see if I was qualified for the Navy, or say I wanted to see if I was qualified for the military academy at West Point, for my college application, I could actually take it on a phone, take the test, submit it. And one of the things that that was really important to us, that it wasn't just a novelty app where here's the standards, go do this test and like manually enter your scores. We want it to be verifiable for 2 things, right? It's like trust but verify. Like in the military, there's this, if you look at the Army regulations, like it takes I think 3 graders to administer a fitness test to 1 person. So there's a lot of distrust. Like they think that it's got to be perfect. And the challenge that I had when I started down the ReadyFit project was, like, with technology, you can do anything these days. So why can't you administer a test with a phone and have it verifiable? So one of the things that's different about ours and why we're so excited about the Asensei partnership is not only the movement recognition, but that, these videos are captured. There's no subjectivity into what is a good push-up, what's a bad push-up. And then that video is uploaded and a grader can view it and verify it. And on top of that, like, we found that when people are using our app, they're going to be more honest, because now someone's watching them and they're filming themselves. So they're not going to like sort of rush through their push-ups. And then you layer on the Asensei feature and it's in real time telling them how many push-ups that they actually did. It's going to be great. There's a lot of extensions what we can do, but that's the quick overview of kind of what we're working towards.
Yeah, amazing. The first thing I think about when I hear you say all this too is, like, I owned a CrossFit gym for a very long time, and I judge a lot of CrossFit events. And how nice it would have been to have an objective measure for judging these reps, because I can't tell you how many disputes I saw over whether or not someone was in a full depth push up or a sit up was complete or a chin got over a bar, right? So it's a really, I don't know. That was the first thing I thought. Like, you guys got to get into CrossFit competition somehow. But yeah, maybe you could stand a little bit on that, Steven. Like how exactly is Asensei integrating into the app? Well, let's actually let me take a step back and reframe this another way. What is the user experience for ReadyFit? What does that look like from the point they find the application to them engaging with it and then using it for long term?
Sure. So we're a startup and we're working through that. But one of the first things I will say is we wanted to be different than every other fitness app. No other fitness app was working on testing and assessment and, basically evaluating readiness. And so we wanted that would be our point of entry, why people would be interested. And then that naturally leads us into the training and coaching side of it. So the things that we're working on now is going to be the Asensei movement recognitions on what does a good push-up look like, so that the user can do it. And then, like your standard sort of coaching app, users getting training plans and able to do that. And then having the coach be able to give that user real-time feedback if their reps aren't correct. With the demographic we're working with, like once they figure out how to do a push-up and a pull-up, there's probably not a lot of like continue to do the computer vision and evaluating for the workouts. But it's that initial step is pretty important. And then when it comes to testing, so many, young men, young women take these tests and have never like seen themselves do a push-up or a pull-up or whatever the right form is. So they don't even know how they look. So they can't get coached on, oh, like you're not going all the way up, you're not going all the way down, or, what was that? So I think it sets the stage for people to have a good base. And then once they have that good base, we can really coach them into their goals of whether it's joining the military or whether it's, qualifying for a special forces program. Two very different things, but they all start with a foundation. And so I think ReadyFit is that hopefully going to be that foundation, that entry point on where someone gets exposed to this is what military physical fitness looks like. And if I am able to meet these standards, then I can achieve all these goals.
Yeah. Anything to add there, Steven?
Yeah, no, I mean, I love, I just love this product. I'm kind of keeping it quiet because I'm super excited about it. Eric, you probably know Fergus Connolly. Fergus, someone I pay a lot of attention to in the kind of world of human performance. I first met Fergus like on the freeway. We basically figured out a Starbucks we could meet at between San Francisco and Michigan. He was following Harbaugh from the 49ers to University of Michigan. And Fergus has a great phrase. He's quite, he's very tech forward, but he's very against frivolous tech, right? Tech for the sake of tech. And he has a great phrase, which I think really applies to ReadyFit, which is work back from the score. Like if it doesn't move the needle on the scoreboard on game day, and if you can't kind of work it back to the score, why are you using that tech, right? And so I love that ReadyFit are working back from the score. And I think, one of the things that really excites me about this product, and Jamie, we can edit if I say something I shouldn't. But no, one of the things that excites me about the product is not just that you can administer the test and submit the test, and that we're using Asensei to annotate that video, right? And this is something that we do more generally in sport, is if you've got hours of game tape or hours of practice footage that a coach might otherwise have to sit and trawl through, how do you use Asensei to annotate moments that happen? That was a serve, that was a forehand return, that was a backhand return, that was a pitch, that was a strike, that was a ball. And so our ability to annotate tape and say to a coach or, say to someone reviewing a fitness test, I think you should take a look here. I gave the rep, but it was in this threshold. You decide. So that AI augmentation of human intelligence. So I love that on the testing, but I really love the mock testing, Jamie. That was the thing I wanted to share. This ability for me to go in and do the test and see how I would have done and decide, like, am I ready yet, or shall I train harder, shall I practice harder? If I'd had that as a kid, because I was the same as Jamie as a kid. Like I was always about the competitions and always about could I beat my score, and then could I beat my friend's score? And so, yeah, I just think it's a really exciting application of, and this, Eric, but like there's an embarrassment of opportunities of things that Asensei can do that are just mind-blowing 10x capabilities. But this is a really good example of just taking really robust motion capture that isn't just pass-fail. You did a push-up. but pass fail with a nuanced understanding of, and Jamie, you can maybe talk about the different types of push-up that different military tests have and the different criteria for what's acceptable and what's scored. It takes us like an hour to go in and say like, okay, let's use this push-up for this test or this push-up for this test. So it's just a really exciting application of the fundamentals that we do well rather than the art of the possible that I'll often come and speak with you about.
Yeah. Yeah. That was, I mean, a question of curiosity, Jamie, is like how many between the Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard as well? I don't know if you're involved in that, but like how many different tests, fitness plans, like how many different offerings do you have across the board? Like how wide is that?
Oh, I mean,
breadth?
well, our product has so much room to grow, and we're probably starting with the hardest customer first in the military. But we have all of the official tests for the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. And I think what you were getting at is the difference in standards. You would think that the military would have the same standards. The great part about the military, which has been great with working with Asensei, is there's like a paragraph or two on all the rules for a push-up for every service. Like, this is the nuance, this is what's accepted, this is what's not accepted. What's unique about it is you would think that they would all agree to what is a correct push-up, and they don't. Like a good example, the Service Academy test, you're allowed to, when you rest, you're allowed to lift an arm and you're allowed to bow your back. But like say you do 2 minutes of push-ups and after a minute you're tired, you can kind of go in that downward dog position and lift a hand off the ground and shake it out, where some push-ups, they say, well, you can't lift a hand off the ground, but you can bow your back. And then other services are like, if you rest, you have to be in a perfect plank position in the up position in the rest, right? So what is it? So Asensei allows us to recognize those things. And then on like this special forces side, they're always going to be more strict. The elbows need to be below 90 versus like at 90. And the Army, like, to give you an idea of the scale of the problem, their newest fitness test, where they spent millions upon millions of dollars on like what is most relevant that people need to do, they switched from a normal push-up to what's called a hand release push-up. So basically you go down and you take your hands off the ground and you make a T with your arms faced out and you come back. But when you think about the whole reason why they did that is because they couldn't judge a push-up correctly, because people were gun decking it, if you will. Like, some people could get away with not coming all the way up or going all the way down, and would then say, oh, I did 100 push-ups, and it was like your 100 push-ups might be like a SEAL's 50 push-ups, so it's interesting. And you said it before, but now, like, with the movement recognition, there's no dispute, like, as this product grows, the only dispute might be like you didn't set up your phone or your camera correctly, or there was something going on the background of the technology. But if it's set up correctly, and you're filming at the right angle, like, there's no dispute on what a good push-up is, which is pretty exciting.
And Eric, we have obsessed about this at Asensei, okay? And you and I have done podcasts before as other companies have launched products, and I've kind of said to you, like, I'm pretty confident they're trying to use computer vision classification to feed in lots of video of people and train a machine to recognize it. And like, Jamie, I'm going to cut this last 30 seconds of what you just said and turn it into a Facebook ad, because it really articulates the problem so well. Is Jamie's just described all these different nuanced variations of a push-up, that the more and more of them you add, the harder and harder it gets for computer vision classification. The example I've used before is, we were all blown away the first time Google was able to kind of pick a cat out of an image. But then as you start adding more and more cats, eventually there's some Facebook meme that, can you tell the difference between a cat and a chocolate chip cookie? They start to kind of look the same, because suddenly these things start to all blur together. We have a very distinctive approach to movement recognition that's based on expressing the biomechanics of the movement and the choreography and the kind of the movement between postures and the timing between postures. So for us to say, for Jamie to say to us, this is a Navy SEAL push-up and I need to see the elbows go past 90. That's like, okay, we'll be back in an hour. Like, we've deployed it. Do you want to test it? It's not oh shoot, now we need to go and catch a whole bunch of videos of Navy SEALs doing push-ups and train that really nuanced difference. So it plays to our strength of being a very distinctive approach to movement recognition that allows us to have that nuanced understanding of exercises. And I've always said this about technology: the technologies that excite me the most are the ones that appear to be very simple, but you just haven't thought about it hard enough about how hard it actually is. But you hide that difficulty and complexity just from a, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's the experience we can.
The questions I have for you guys is that, it's one thing to properly administer a test, right? With, I think we call the term a digital referee, but also, when you're coaching the tactical athlete, as it is now commonly called, there's a lot of like form correction, because this many repetitions for people who may be relatively untrained can cause a lot of injury if they're done incorrectly. Like if you're flaring your elbows on, we're just talking about push-ups obsessively, but if you're flaring your elbows on push-ups, that's going to lead to some shoulder issues eventually, right? If you're running incorrectly and you're heel striking, especially in boots, I imagine, Jamie, you probably know better than anyone, it's going to lead to some pain, right? In the hips and the knees, and probably get people out. So, what's the coaching as far as like maintaining proper form, teaching proper form, and also, trying to keep these people as healthy as they can as they go through the training? Because I would imagine there's a certain percentage of people who drop out of, military just due to physical, injuries and things like that. So the health of them is really important.
Yeah, well, so I'll tackle the first part of that, and I'll let Steven tackle the injury prevention, because I know it's a real thing. But where I've seen the strongest thing is, like, if I talk to a potential candidate that wants to go into special warfare, and I ask them how many miles are they running a week, they always, like, without exception, say, "Oh, I'm doing like 20 to 25 miles a week," and I'm like, probably not. And the same with like the fitness workouts, like how many times you're working out. And so the benefit of having the coaching and the movement recognition is you get an actual true evaluation of where someone is at their current fitness level. And then a coach can then make a meaningful difference in their training plan and allow them to build up. Generally speaking, like the guy that says that is probably doing 5 or 6 miles a week, if that. And if a coach were to put them on 20 to 25 miles a week, they'd get injured right away. And so the same goes with, giving someone a calisthenics or a weightlifting routine. By us tracking it in the coaching app and being able to verify that they're doing these things, then you really have a good picture of that person's fitness and then can adjust accordingly. Clearly, the movement recognition stuff will auto correct and sort of prevent that overuse stuff as well. And I'll let Steven talk to that. But where I'm most excited about it is, here's validation that this person needs to work out 3 or 4 times a week, which is really what a tactical athlete needs to do. I mean, people think it's pro sports. It's not pro sports. They need to exercise and be fit, and they need to be able to carry a 40-pound ruck, and they need to and do their job. And part of that is maintaining a certain level of fitness so that they can maintain their weight and be able to hike outdoors.
Yeah, Eric, I'll talk a little bit more broadly, because like one of the things that we're very intentional about at Asensei is what are the high value recurring use cases that might move across populations and move across industries. So in the world of connected fitness, we have a solution that we call a smart warm-up, which is like if you were warming me up as a coach, you're just taking me through some basic movement prep. You're probably asking me, how was my weekend? And, what are you doing tonight? And did you see the game? But the whole time you're watching me being like, oh, I can see some stickiness in Steven's movement there. I'm maybe going to throw another exercise into the movement prep, or I'm maybe going to rethink something I was going to do later. So in connected fitness, we call that a smart warm-up. In physical therapy, it's a movement assessment, and it's just, it's a slightly different use case. We're probably being we're more like a digital goniometer. It's like, let's measure range of motion and let's see is range of motion improved or impeded since the last time we saw this person moving. So what I really like about ReadyFit, again, kind of working back from the score, we anticipate that all of our customers in all of the industries will eventually have all of the blueprints in place. But the challenge is, where's the highest value place to start? And Jamie's identified that the highest place to start is, let's use Asensei for adjudication and assessment. Let's be that I often describe it to my team, Jamie. You've never heard me say this, but you're like the Concept 2 performance monitor on a rowing machine. You can be anywhere in the world and row a 2K on a Concept 2, and there's a button you can press that gives you a checksum that says that's you can break a world record and have it validated anywhere you sit down on a Concept 2. It's a validated checksum. And that's how I kind of, when I tell people about what we're doing with ReadyFit, I'm like, they're going to be like the Concept 2 of military fitness tests. That'll be it's an authenticated test. But to come to your point, Eric, even when someone's doing a mock test, the sensei is watching them, right? So if I say, let's get off push-ups, let's talk about something else for a change. But then I always go to squats next. But whatever exercise someone is doing, let's take squats because that's a good one for injurious injury patterns, right? If we're seeing somebody doing a squat and we're seeing it's a little asymmetric, they kind of drop down on their left hip and then their right hip. It's like not a straight up and down. It's a little shimmy in there. That's a great example of a movement pattern that a sensei might spot. And let's say their torso is also leaning. They're coming onto their toes when they're doing those squats. Those insights, just like you warming me up, Eric, those insights are opportunities for future coaching. So we don't necessarily need to interrupt the moment. Like, let's just get your mock test in and see your reps. But Jamie's team now have the technology in place so that you can move into what we call a guided learning blueprint, which is like, hey, before you do another mock test, let's look at that squat together. You're coming onto your toes, and it's because, you're bending your knees, not hinging at your hips. And, here's some mobility we're going to do to improve your hip hinge. And then let's get you into a good movement pattern. And so now I've added 5 reps to my squats, not because I got fitter or because I got stronger, but because I got better. So I think about it less in that instance as worrying about injury prevention, and more, if I can get you into good movement, I'm working back from the score. I'm going to get you moving more efficiently and kind of move the needle on that number. So, Jamie, I get excited about when you'll implement guided learning as part of your kind of training locker, if you like, because that's how we kind of get people moving better. So yeah, lots of opportunities, Eric, but it's really interesting for me that, for ReadyFit, that's like, let's help, the future military member move better. But it's exactly the same solution that we're using to teach an elderly population their physical therapy exercises that were the reason they weren't doing their physical therapy, or to drive an experience that in connected fitness is about unlocking a new exercise. You've leveled up, and let's kind of get that engagement loop going. The same underlying solution serves different athletes with different ROI in different ways.
Jamie, as you look at like the big vision of what ReadyFit can be, if you and I are sitting down, and I like to use 2030 now because it's a little longer than 5 years away, but it's right around the corner, right? If we're talking in 2030 and you're like, man, we're super happy with how everything's gone. What does that look like? What does success look like here for you?
Well, I can tell you where we're trying to start and expand out on it. Like initially testing, people want to qualify for something. And then just with my SEAL background, I talk to young men all the time that are like, how do I do it? What do I need to do? And how can I get accepted into the program? Right. And now, like the reach that a guy like me has can be across the country. Someone can take a test without me having to drive and go to a poolside, watch them swim, watch them do the calisthenics. They can do that, and I can give them real time feedback, with our app, and say, okay, here's where you're at now. Here's where you need to get to be. And so that's obviously like kind of a very niche application. But when you talk about the military as a whole, they're trying to evaluate readiness and really have the data to know that these 1 million plus soldiers and sailors across the U.S. are ready to deploy, for injury or for obesity or whatever. And by administering these tests more consistently and meeting people where they're at, so it doesn't have the sort of operational burden of having everyone meet in person and do these tests twice a year. Now they can do it on their own, and it just becomes part of the job. It almost becomes like, hey, it's that annual eval time, and part of your annual eval is like turn in your fitness test, and they go turn it in. And then if you expand that like active duty, the military has people to administer these tests now, and some of that's camaraderie. So there's a little bit of resistance maybe in implementation now. But when you talk about the reservists, the reserve force, which is just as big, sure, their whole job is to occupationally train people 1 weekend a month. And so they're expecting people to just show up qualified. So now if you can take those, million plus reservists and say, hey, every 6 months you go take your test, and you're just supposed to meet the standard. And now as a commanding officer, like, okay, well, 65% of my reserve force is qualified based on this. And I didn't have to like waste a whole weekend evaluating my people in person. I just know based on who's turned in their fitness scores. So that's sort of the entry where we're going. But even more broadly, like I think about ReadyFit as a way that someone fulfills their goals and dreams in whatever like sort of more physical career passion they have. So if you're a firefighter, or you want to go work for Border Patrol or the FBI, all of them have physical fitness assessment tests. And what's different about the military with these, public sector organizations is they don't have an endless amount of people that can just pre-qualify people, even though they try. So if you look at like, say, I don't know how many firefighters apply to be firefighters in the state of California, but, it's probably on the scale of 1 million a year or plus, and they're only accepting, say, 10,000 applications. So now you're enabling these departments to evaluate people and hire the best people for the job without having to have all that manpower and time. It just becomes more of an HR function of the job requires this. We're able to, the individual, if they're motivated enough, can prove that they are physically capable to do the job, and now they can apply. And it doesn't have to, the resistance is these virtual fitness tests, if you aren't going to replace in-person training and testing. Like that will always be there, but it's a good entry point to know where someone stands, and then again coach and train them. And then I always, like I said, I go back to like the world's only getting younger and people are only more digitally connected. So ReadyFit and this movement recognition allows us to meet people where they're at and where they're on their phones. And so I'm more likely to go, hey, I want to be a firefighter. And you're going to be like, look up all the qualifications. And if on there it says, hey, you have to take this fitness test and you can do it right now, they're going to read that and then they're going to do it. And right there, now you're getting someone in shape. 500,000 applicants like that are all going to be actually trying to pass this test. They may not all get accepted, but now I'm making a difference in the world for the people that are applying for those jobs with physical fitness requirements.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I think one of the biggest promises, and you're right, because, the younger generations are they're on screens a lot, right? But if we can get the digital experience, like you're saying, meeting where they're at, that can lead into more of a, in-person community, like, that type of environment where they can actually connect. Is that something that you guys are starting to see through the app, or maybe you have plans to build in? Like, how does that work with the actual community?
Yeah, and again, like the coaching, like in our training, we called it boat cruise, right? But there's a clear indication that people are going to do something more likely if there's community. Like it's hard to do online spin class by yourself, but if like 10 people, you're going to show up and do it. The success of Peloton, though, was they created that community. So absolutely on the coaching side, but it's more of in our use case, it's more of like an accountability feature. Like, hey, here's the boat crew that's doing this 12-week plan to prep for this special program. And then within that community, they're like, hey, how was your workout today? Did you do the run? Did you do the swim? And then they can actually start coaching themselves. The other thing too is like everyone thinks they're really good until they are able to evaluate themselves against their peers. And, of course, we're going to have the leaderboard and the bragging rights part of it, but leaderboards extends to just the groups within themselves. I think you guys probably all remember when Fitbit first came out and you could like invite like 5 of your friends and then you'd each compete for 10,000 steps. So like when you take it like, yeah, that's a novelty and it worked. But when you're talking about people that are trying to qualify for a job and you can put that community together of like-minded individuals with the same goal, and now they're all communicating together digitally, you can have a guy in California or Texas that are both going to eventually meet each other, but are trying to qualify for the same program. So yes, is the short answer, or the short answer, and the long answer was what I just said.
And Eric, if I can add to some of the underlying technologies as well. So this is something that we think a lot. I'm kind of, talking about roadmap a little bit, or some of the things that we're doing with customers that aren't public yet. But I've always been a huge believer as a coach in challenges. It's a way I would motivate a 2-hour karate class, right? Every so often in the class, it's like, listen, in martial arts, in a karate dojo, the highest graded person stands at the front right of the class, and then you just rank down to the most junior person at the back left of the class. And pretty much everyone there imagines themselves being in that top right spot. But every other spot on the floor, there's a person to your left that you don't want to beat you, and there's a person to your right that you want to beat. There's just this inherent competitiveness. And so that inherent competitiveness that our team has known for kind of 20, 30 years on the floor of the dojo, that comes into our SDK. We think about what's the best imaginable fitness experience or workout experience. So we're big on challenges. We're very big on how do you create these opportunities for challenges. And a challenge might be an AMRAP. It might be based on reps, or it might be based on hold times. The number of times I would have a karate class just, sit with their back against the wall or hold a roundhouse kick out in the air and last person to put their leg down. It's just, fun things. And these are all things that we can deliver through our SDK. Jamie, I'm giving you features now. Blake's going to be those out in roadmap. But we also love partner workouts. To Jamie's point about community, with Asensei, there's now no reason that you can't have remote but synchronous workouts. So Jamie and I could both be doing a push-up test where he goes for a minute and Asensei's watching him count his reps. And then as soon as he hits his minute, he goes into rest and I go into, my phone's like, okay, now you go. And I've got his target on screen. And so we can do these kind of synchronous partner workouts where you're actually bringing two people into a shared experience or bringing a team of people into a shared experience. So as we think more broadly about the applications for Asensei in fitness competitions, you mentioned CrossFit is such an obvious one. It's like, when you start with the biggest population, let's adjudicate digitally, and then let's start bringing people to regionals and nationals. I would, anybody that's in the world of fitness competitions or digital adjudication, we've got a lot of tricks up our sleeve that we're excited to let people see. Jamie will follow up after this.
Yeah, awesome.
Well, I think the difference with and I know the CrossFit games qualify people with video. One of the difference was you think about the people that were viewing those videos. If you didn't score high enough, they only had to watch 1% of those videos to see who was going on to the next level. Right. But with Asensei, you don't necessarily have to have someone to watch it, but you could also accurately score everyone. I'm sure in the CrossFit community, there's probably this, people that they didn't score high enough to move to the next level. They're in that maybe top 80% range, but really they weren't. And they're ranked however they're ranked. And whether you think that's fair or not, it's not doing that person any favors, and it's not doing the organization any favors. They really want to have a sense of equity across who's able to do what and who's trained for it. So what we're doing with ReadyFit, obviously it's not CrossFit, it's more calisthenic exercises. The pull-up feature that Steven's team put together for us, you can recognize a pull-up whether they're forward or backwards. And what's awesome about that is, think about that, their back is towards you. So someone's got a pull-up bar against a wall and there's not enough room where they're facing you. But with the right, looking at the skeletal features, if that person's chin is above the bar, even if you're face back to them. I practiced it and tried it and tested it. I was like, this is amazing. I can't not have my chin above the bar and you can't even see my chin. So it's pretty exciting, the stuff that we can do. And it's not just for that top 1% of the population. It's for qualifying everyone. And that's important from where I stand, because at the military level, it's not just about training SEALs. It's about we need to, for national security, we need to bolster our troops, and we need more people that are physically fit and can join. Those tests aren't super hard for someone who's fit, but it's a big hurdle for someone who maybe has no exposure to fitness and wants to join the Navy or, join the Marine Corps because they think it's going to be a great adventure for them. But they've been sitting at school and didn't play sports and didn't do all those things their whole high school experience. And now they're like, I got to get a job. This is what the job's going to be. I need someone to coach me so I can do this. So,
yeah, right on. I love what you guys are doing. As in my coaching career, I got to work with the Santa Barbara Police Department, trying to help them prepare people for their testing. And then a couple young men who are going for buds. And, I just got to see, the ambiguity from externally, like, well, what are we actually going for here, right? So you guys are really solving a problem and having a clear path and solution to it through technology and community too. So it's really cool. And I think people listen to this will inevitably want to get involved or talk to you guys in some way. So if they do, where's a good place for them to go to reach out to you, Jamie, and then Steven as well?
Well, they can find our contact information on readyfit.com. And then, of course, our app's available in the App Store. We're constantly putting out new features. Our target customer is going to be more, business to government at first, or business to business. But we are rolling out the coaching and the training features, business to consumer, so we can sort of hone our sort of testing process for people that are interested. So, like let's say I create an 8-week training plan. One of the cool things that I can do with our testing and with Asensei is I can start that 8-week training plan with a test. It doesn't have to be an official military test. It could be any test that us on our end creates. And then at the end of it, they can have another test, and then they can say, okay, I did this for 8 weeks and I actually have something to show for it. I didn't just work out for 8 weeks and didn't know that I wasn't getting better. So, yeah, I'd love for people to reach out as they hear what we're doing, get as excited about it as I am, and give us feedback on how we can improve. But I'm on a mission, like no pun intended. I want as many people to experience what I experienced through fitness and the opportunities that I've had, just because I was able to qualify for things that like the average person doesn't think is possible, but given time and training, it is possible.
Awesome. Steven.
Can't really top that. So just find me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is where we love to share what we're doing, and increasingly where we like to spotlight what our customers are doing. Our technology looks best when it's inside awesome products like ReadyFit. So I'm going to keep my test scores to myself. So,
Right on. Well, hey, you guys, great work. Really cool stuff that you're doing. I'm very excited to follow and see how it evolves. And thanks for joining me today, ladies and gentlemen. Jamie and Monroe and Steven Webster.
Thanks, Eric.
Yeah, thank you.